Officially live. So, what's going on, everybody? We are back for episode 99 of the Think Big podcast. I'm feeling really bad for anyone that is normally on Sam Singh's YouTube channel. Right now, we had a crazy last minute issue with StreamYard where it just totally wiped out everybody's accounts. In fact, I need to go ahead and send an invite link over to Sam so that he can get inside here because he won't even be able to get on to StreamYard tonight until I send him that link. But guys, I'm excited for tonight's episode. It is episode 99 of the Think Big podcast. The last 2 weeks I have not been able to be on because we were traveling around the world. We were in Montana, we were in Utah, we were doing speaking events, all the fun things. Now I'm finally back in Arizona, and I've got one of my favorite people here with me, Jeff Smith. He's going to be hanging out for a month. And I'm excited because yesterday you were in your community on school. You were teaching your students who you teach in high ticket sales. You teach them in real estate sales, how to really lock up deals, how to close deals, how to build rapport with sellers. And you were doing a total mastermind breakdown of everything that you learned from spending Sunday afternoon at a Andy Elliott, essentially like workshop mastermind here in Arizona.
Yeah, it was a solid day with Andy Elliott, and I apologize. Like I roll into Phoenix, and now StreamYard like goes to hell like all in an afternoon. So sorry for being your personal bad luck charm, but dude, great to be here to hang out. But yeah, I do run my own sales training community for all things you talked about, and one of the things as a sales trainer is like I always want to level up too.
Yep.
And and this is something Andy talked about, like he goes to seminars as well. So you can figure out where the gaps are within yourself to fix them and then help the rest of your students grow. So yeah, I was there for a solid day with Andy Elliott and his team, which was awesome. And then Dean Graziosi came by, and Steve Weatherford actually stopped by as well. So it was an action-packed day with tons of energy. And yeah, like it was incredible.
Yeah, and what I love about it is you took that information, you brought it back to your community, you brought it back to your people yesterday on your call, and I wanted to be there, but then I had a call that popped in at the exact same time. So we decided we would do this. We would have you come on to the podcast tonight and ultimately share some breakdowns that you got from spending the day with Andy Elliott. So I'm excited about this. I'm actually about to pull I left my notebook downstairs. I want to grab my notebook. I'm just going to grab my cell phone, and I'll be taking notes on my cell phone. But I want to hear what some of these takeaways were so that we could talk about it. But I'm going to grab my cell phone real quick before you tell anyone anything.
Do it. Okay. So while Marlon's doing that, if you don't know Andy Elliott, I'm sure there'll be a link somewhere. I mean, now that your phone has heard me say Andy Elliott, you'll start having all his ads appear. But Andy, is very, it's a very intense energy of going after what you want. And the way he describes it is attacking your goals viciously. And one of the things I think has also made Andy appealing is one, like, it's hard to find somebody who truly basks in this energy. But one of the things I even tell people on my own sales coaching calls, especially when we're talking creative finance or cash or anything, a lot of topics become clear when you take them to the extreme. And so for Andy, when he's talking with people, he's not really like trying to beat them down. He's trying to force them to think about, what would you do if this situation was extreme? So one of the clips, I remember seeing this, he's talking with a guy, who's in car sales, and that's where Andy started. And so he's talking to this guy, like, what's stopping you from making more sales? And he had, some things he was thinking about. And Andy just looks right at him and said, if like a terrorist captured your family and said, I'm going to kill everyone unless you sell 20 cars this month, what would happen? Dude's like, I'd sell 30. And he goes, of course you would. Why is it that such an extreme circumstance has to happen in order for you to take the action that you should be? And so it's not about making like this is a realistic scenario. It's forcing you to think and forcing your brain to say, what would I do if this had to happen? And then asking yourself, do I truly want that goal? And if the answer is yes, then attack that goal mercilessly without apology, without question, and settle for nothing less. And that's really Andy's big message. That was the thesis of the day.
Dude, you know what's crazy? I freaking love that, because while we were doing the run across America, so Andrew and I were out there a lot. We're doing 44 miles of running per day, every day, back to back. And so obviously we get a lot of time to just talk to each other because it was just us out there. And we're doing mindset conversations, and we started actually saying, what is it that you do in order to get yourself to do the hard things? People look and they're like, dude, you're running an ultra marathon a day. How are you doing that? And we said we go to a dark place in our mind sometimes, and we'll have this question like, hey, if my mom were about to get shot and I just needed to run another 20 miles to get to her, would I be complaining about being tired right now, or would I run? Right? If my sister were getting abducted or kidnapped, right? Like, and we would go to these dark places because you realize you do have the energy inside of you to get it done. You do have the reserve to get it done, but oftentimes you just don't think it's important enough to draw on that energy. So I like that question on, do you actually want it? Because if you actually want it, you will do the thing. No question about it.
Yeah, you have the capability, and then just challenging yourself to think, what would it take? And so one of the first questions, he starts off the whole thing. He says, think about your 5-year plan. Think about what you want to achieve in 5 years. Now, he kind of laughed. It was like, look, if you guys are talking like you want to make $10 billion in the next 5, like not absurd, but a little crazy. What is that 5-year goal? And then he asked the second question. Now, what if you had to achieve it in the next 90 days?
I'm taking notes
By the
right
end
now.
of the year, what would it take? What would you do? And what you realize, everyone, most of us, when we make 5-year goals, it's so far out there, it's so far out in the distance that we don't even think about what are the action steps it's going to take for me to achieve that anyway, because it's 5 years out there. Well, I'll figure out the lending. I'll figure out how to, it'll kind of come over time. But if you take this and condense it into 90 days and say, what do I have to do now?
Yep.
The intensity raises. It forces your mind to consider the things you need to do. And here's the other problem. When we do 5-year goals, a lot of times what we're doing, everybody, we're putting off the uncomfortable stuff. We're putting it out there. Well, once I get better at sales, then I can call. Once I get better at private money raising, then I'll do that. Once I take down once I do all of this, then I'll be ready. And the truth is, like, the day never comes where you're not in some state of discomfort. It just, I've done this to myself where I've gotten a little reluctant to, either hire somebody or go after, like all the things. So whatever you guys are thinking in your mind, like, it's time to start breaking through it. It's not going to get just more comfortable over time. It's just not.
It's funny. I was doing a breakdown in my community yesterday, and we were talking about lessons that I learned from being on the road for the last month and a half. And one of the lessons I wrote down was have urgency, but don't be in a rush, right? Live with a sense of urgency, but never be in a rush. Because when I was doing that trip, as I reflected this past month and a half, I've had some of the greatest memories of my life. I mean, we literally drove across the country. We rock climbed, we mountain climbed, we rode jet skis, we shot guns, we did all the cool things that people put on their bucket list forever. And I've had these items on my bucket list for the last 10, 15 years. And as I completed a lot of these items, it got to the point where I was asking myself this question of, what the hell was I waiting for? Why did it take me this long to do this? Because in the act of doing it, and I'm sure you see this, you realize nothing was so special about this moment that this couldn't have been done earlier, right? We're waiting for that perfect circumstance.
Yeah.
Well, now is the perfect circumstance. Like, this moment is the perfect moment.
Exactly. And guys, one of the things we have to recognize, like, if that's where you're at, look, 100% of us are guilty of this. Like, without question, 100% of us are guilty of this of some way. The question is, what are you going to do about it? And so one of the first steps is identify those gaps within yourself. Like, don't judge it. Don't just observe it and say, okay, these are the gaps that I need to go through. This one was uncomfortable. This I feel intimidated about. And don't come crashing down on yourself because of it. But be brutally honest about what it is that you need to do to get to the place, because then you can start to deal with it. But if you hide it in the back, like Marlon's talking about, like, what are you waiting for to get there? What has to happen? And the key is, like, whatever that thing is that you think has to happen before, it's not coming unless you take the action and go chase it.
Dude, I love that. And the authenticity part, that's, I think, the scary part for most people, is showing up with all your faults and failures, showing up with all the challenges, showing up with all the mistakes, showing up with the fact that you don't know how to make it happen yet. You're not quite sure what you're doing. I've been in the practice recently of I coach people, right? Like I'm a high performance coach. I work with people, I work with entrepreneurs. They pay me a lot of money to work with them. And I used to feel a lot of pressure about working with some people like, oh my gosh, I hope that I can deliver enough value that they don't think this was a waste of time, that I get a good testimonial, that I get a good referral. And
Yeah.
I would put all this pressure on myself to be perfect. And then you know what I started doing? And this happened as a result of actually me sitting in on a podcast I was doing. One of my guests, he said this to me, and I've been saying it ever since. He said, let me start off this podcast by saying, when you see me doing things, 80% of the time, I have no clue what the hell I'm doing. Right? Like he started the podcast episode off by saying, all the success you've seen me do, 80% of it was absolutely just taking imperfect action, figuring it out, right? It was falling and failing forward. And so people are afraid of showing that side of them. I've been finding it extremely liberating to show up to events, to show up to meetups, to show up to new coaching clients, to show up to situations and admit right off the bat that 80% of the time I have no stinking clue what I'm doing. Even today, as we're putting this getting this podcast together, like Jeff got to see the behind the scenes of me, like, oh my gosh, like StreamYard deleted everything and I'm trying to figure this out last second. And we just figure it out. We put it together. And now we are here doing the thing while other people are still thinking about and talking about potentially doing the thing. And I'm just willing to show up making a bumbling fool of myself until I get to that point where I'm good that people will say, damn, he makes it look natural.
Yeah. So let's talk about 3 of the major points that Andy brought up when we first started. And this is all going to tie in together. So number 1 here, and I got this big old notepad just full of stuff. Sorry. All right. Number 1, do more by killing all the distractions. And again, think of this in Andy's voice, like bald head, like built dude. Okay. Like bring all that intensity into this. Do more by killing all the distractions. And we all know what the distractions are. Like we all know it, right? It's the news channel, it's the website, it's your stupid phone game, it's text messages, it's all these little things. And it completely kills all our momentum. This isn't even as simple as, hey, 1 hour of deep work. It's annihilating everything that's going to distract you from achieving your goals. For some of you who are watching, that can also mean getting laser hyper focused on maybe one product, maybe one type of seller list you're calling on if you're in real estate, or just one product that you're selling. Whatever it is, you're going to be completely focused and not distracted by other shiny objects. Everything, all of your intensity is going to that. One of the other reasons that this is particularly interesting is Andy doesn't do 1 year or 5 year goals at all. He doesn't. He and his wife, Jacqueline, they do 90-day goals only because they have truly lived by that idea. They've realized that those 5-year goals, that they could condense them so much that now they just have audacious goals every quarter. And again, they said this all the time. It's like we're viciously attacking it with every ounce of intensity they have. And then at the end of the quarter, they take a 1-week vacation.
I love that.
And even if they didn't 100% get there, I mean, they would have certainly gotten way farther than anybody else.
Well, you know what? It's funny, right? Because I listened to Ed Milet, and Ed Milet spoke about this in a podcast, that the fact that we still operate with a 24-hour day and we still expand work to fill 24 hours is actually kind of archaic, because we worked with 24-hour days back when communication was delivering snail mail over the course of a week. To get to one city, you had to ride a horse for 8 hours to get to a town that was just a mile, a few miles away. And so the fact that we still operate from this place as if we need 24 hours to do this much, when we could communicate instantaneously with our phones and with email, when we could see a person's face across the world in real time, that we still require 24 hours to do the same amount of work that our fathers and our forefathers were doing. Like, it's just unreal. So
it's mind-blowing.
It does bring back to perspective that idea of like attack it viciously and ask yourself, begin to ask that question, what would it take? And ask yourself that question right now. What would it take to accomplish your 1-year goal in the next 90 days, if it were possible, right? And don't go into the, well, I can't do it. Just entertain it. Let your imagination work. Things are created in the imagination first. So begin to imagine what would need to be true. What would it take? What sort of person would you need to become? What sort of skill set do you need to start to hone in on? As you start to ask yourself that question, you start to get that clarity, then you start to find your focal points. That's the high leverage work you should be working on, right? If you're recognizing, well, I'm only making 10 calls a day, but it would take 100 calls a day. Awesome. How do you make 100 calls a day now? You start to ask yourself that question. Let your mind find the solution, but condense. I love that. Frame questions are, by the way, for people that don't know, questions are how you start to control the mind. Questions are how you direct the mind. If you ever hire a coach or you hire someone to help you out with your mind and they are telling but not asking, they're a terrible coach, in my opinion. You want to find people who are going to ask you better questions that you are not asking yourself yet.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. What Marlon said, like if discomfort was not the issue, what would it take? So the second item that he talked about is grow faster. Now we've just kind of gone through that the whole well, man, Jeff, 5 year into 90 days, that's a lot. Aren't we growing faster there? Well, there's more to it than that. Every day, think about how you can level up in some way. And what he would kind of talk about is the old Andy is dead and the new Andy, today, is the new reinvention. Okay, so everything that happened yesterday doesn't matter anymore. All of the losses, the bad conversation, none of it matters today. But by the same token, all of the wins that you had, all the good stuff, it also doesn't matter because this is a brand new day. You're a brand new you. So what does the brand new you do? Does the brand new you, this person does make 30 calls in a day. The next day it's 50 calls. The next day it's 60. And you keep leveling up and keep this reinvention going every single day. Even if it was a reinvention once a week, having instead of a New Year's resolution, you had a new month's resolution or a new week's resolution, but instead make it a new day resolution and you're leveling up 365 times faster than everybody else who waits for January 1st and then doesn't do their resolutions anyway, right? So that was the second major point that he brought, and I thought that was really, really powerful.
So let me ask you, right? It sounds like it's staying intentional and staying in that state of intentionality all throughout it, right? Like these sprints, right? These 90-day sprints and showing up daily. It's not just going through the motion. It's every minute of every hour of every day is spent in this state, in this heightened state.
Yeah, and it's to a lot of people, when you first hear this, it's like when you encounter David Goggins the first time. And you just look and you go, this is just a crazy person. I can't be like that. I can't be like Andy Elliott and be just this amped up and, throwing back a dozen Red Bulls every hour. I just can't do it. But
does he actually drink a dozen Red Bulls every hour?
No, but that's the impression we get of him.
Yeah, I was like, damn.
He's just got to be psychotic. There's no other explanation for it. But the point is, and David Goggins is really good at preaching this message. You guys are far, like me, all of it. We're far more capable than our stupid brain tells us we are. Because but that's going to be I'm not really sure about that. I'm going to take imperfect action. That's why I can't do the thing. And so, in Andy's mind, he really said he prizes himself on being able to level up and change and grow better than anyone.
Yeah.
And so what if that was you? What if that was me? What if that was Marlon? And just every day, I'm going to level up and be this person I want to be, and nothing can stop me. And that doesn't mean every day is going to be perfect, obviously. I can't wake up tomorrow, shave my head, and be Andy Elliott. It doesn't work that way. But if I can take level ups every day about something, that's the whole idea of get 1% better.
Yeah. It's a decision. It's a daily decision. To show up.
And you got to remind yourself, throughout the day, multiple times that this is happening. It's not even I looked at it today. I was like, I reminded myself this morning. Well, tomorrow when I reinvent myself, it's going to be 3 times a day. I'm going to remind myself of this stuff.
And it's funny. So there's a gentleman online. You may have seen him. Ask Vin, Asian guy, does communication, very, very well spoken. Used to be a stage magician. Now teaches people how to communicate at the highest level, just being able to articulate, use your voice, use your body language. And so a woman, and I promise you, this comes full circle to what you're saying here. A woman asked him, she's on stage, and she says, well, when you're doing all these things with your voice and you're articulating and gestating a certain way and you're using body language and almost manipulating yourself to be able to communicate, do you feel like you're faking? right? Like, it's because this is what people see. Like when Andy and Goggins are saying tap into this different animal, and you're like, well, I'm a calm person, right? Like, you don't get it, Jeff. I'm relaxed. I'm chill. I'm not that guy. And he said this, and it clicked. He said, well, when you see a person, and maybe the first time they ever pick up an instrument, right? They pick up a guitar and they go to strum it and they go to play a song. They probably suck, right?
They definitely suck.
They're terrible, right? The first time you ever picked up a guitar, even if any of you play instruments, the first time you played whatever instrument, the clarinet, trumpet, saxophone, you were terrible at it. However, they kept showing up and they kept practicing playing this instrument, and eventually they got to be able to manipulate the instrument in a way that it made beautiful music, that they were able to get and extract so much more from it. Are they faking when they are playing this instrument now, or are they simply accessing new capability with a tool that they have? You have energy inside of you. You have the ability to change who you are, to create a new personality, to create, I like what you said, reinvent yourself. You have the ability to reinvent or just simply invent a version of you that is able to be intense, that's able to be dialed in, that's able to be focused in a 90-day sprint. Are you faking when you tap into that mode? Hell no. You're being intentional. You're creating a character. You're using the God-given abilities that you have. You're using the tools of your mind, the tools of your body, the tools of your personality, the tools of your will to go out and create this next level version of you that you're going to attack your goals with relentlessly. So I love that. Like this is like getting me all fired up and jazzed up. I'm probably going to end up coming back and like rewatching this and also stealing your notes later.
Yeah, right after he goes and runs another ultra marathon. Like if Marlon's going to just head out the door like, peace, I'm going to be 44 miles. I'll be like, what the hell just happened? Yeah. So that's the second point. So the third point here is change more lives. Right. So there's a really good saying. I'm not sure who did it. It's kind of been attributed to multiple people, but your compensation is directly tied with the complexity of the problem you solved, multiplied by the number of people that you're helping. This is why Apple, Steve Jobs, they were making an absurd amount of money. Why? Because they were solving a very complicated problem with an iPhone and helping tons of people all over the world. Elon Musk, same thing. So all of those people that you're helping, this is how you're going to grow your compensation. And this was super important because Dean Graziosi comes in about 2 hours into this whole thing. Like Andy's just going hard, pedal to the metal. And he's like, let's bring Dean Graziosi on there. And for you guys who do not know who Dean is one of Tony Robbins' partners. Very successful, ran a business when he was younger, bought all the Tony Robbins stuff, ended up being partners. They had just gotten back from Cologne, Germany for a presentation of 18,000. But, no big thing, right? And I'm going to tell you kind of the full breadth of what Dean went over, but here's the point I'm making here with the change whole lives. Dean comes on later and he ties this together and he talks about an event that he went to, and it was predominantly women business leaders. Okay, small businesses. This isn't like Amazon. These are just normal everyday folks who are running their own small businesses. And he polls the audience at one point and says, how many of you do not like sales? And about 90% of them raise their hand. They're like, okay, we're uncomfortable selling. Okay. And he finds one of them in the audience, like on the second row, he said, what do you do? And she starts to explain that, yeah, I really hate sales. What is it that you're selling? And she gets really excited all of a sudden. She's like, well, I help women when they go through a pregnancy and they get on the other side, like their hormones are all screwed up and they got depressed, like all of the nastiness, like I help them deal with that and overcome it way faster than anybody. And she's getting really amped up about it. And all of us, like we're sitting in the audience at Andy Elliott's seminar and we're like that's pretty freaking cool. I want to go sell that myself. And so he's talking to her about all this, see that she's getting lit up. And he goes, and you hate selling, right? And she says, yeah, I just don't like it. And Dean says, I probably got a little too intense at this point, but I had to make this obvious for everybody. And he just points right at her and say, then why are you okay with screwing over all these women and allowing more of them to suffer because you won't sell? It was like this big bomb drop. And Dean, he's laughing about it, talking to us. He's like, in the moment I felt like maybe I came a little too hard at this woman. Like that was kind of a gut punch. He said, but I immediately realized it was the right thing because about 10 seconds later, this entire audience of women is jumping up. We love sales. We love sales. He's like, I think I created a bunch of monsters here. But anyway, like, guys, if you have an amazing product that helps people, why in the world would you hold out? Why would you hold out? If you're wholesaling and you know you're going to care more than anybody, don't hold that out. Marlon does high performance. He's not apologizing for saying, I know how to help people. I should not be apologizing for saying my sales training is freaking awesome and my students are getting better. What is that thing that you're doing that you're saying, I'm uncomfortable with? Grocery stores don't make apologies for this.
Hell no.
Personal trainers for fitness, they should not be making apologies. They have an amazing product to sell if they do, and you're happy to pay them for it. So what is the thing that you've said, I'm uncomfortable selling? And then truly ask yourself, how many people are you willing to screw over because you won't go through the uncomfortableness of making the dials or putting yourself out there to say, I care more than anybody else. There was a guy in my he's a student of mine. He got his first sub-2 deal like a week ago.
Oh, let's go.
He said he knocked on 340 doors. And then, not to toot my own horn too much, but he took one of my call recordings, like just mimicked it, rewrote the script and delivered it, got the sub-2 deal. So amazing success. His name's Victor. Is freaking awesome. But here's the point. That seller who signed up the deal, that he solved this problem, if the seller understood that you had to go through 340 doors of no to help them, think about it for yourself. Anybody who's watching this, how much more grateful is that seller going to be that you powered through all the muck to help them instead of stopping at door 339?
Dude, I get chills because this is something I personally had to go through this mindset shift a few years ago because I was one of those people that thought sales were sleazy. I thought everyone was a used car salesperson. I wanted nothing to do with sales. And when I started to learn that this idea of sales is service, when I really adopted that, not just logically in my mind, but internally in my heart, it started to change the way I showed up. And I started to realize, it's very important what you say, like the scripts you use, the way you deliver, but it's more important how you posture your heart in those conversations. And that's something that I love about you because you do your business with integrity. And having integrity, having that true understanding that you are serving a person. And if you feel like you're selling a product that isn't serving a person, guess what? It doesn't mean the product's bad. It means the product's not the right product for you. Because there are times where people are selling a product that they do not believe in. If you are selling a product that you do not believe in, I can already tell you're probably not making the sales you want to make. You're probably not making the numbers you want to make. You're not hitting your goals. I can guarantee you that. If you are out of alignment with the service you provide or the product you sell in the marketplace, you will not do well. You need to be in alignment. You need to be in alignment with the fact that it's good, that it will make people's lives better. And I like what you said, right? Like it should be to the point where you feel like you are screwing a person over if they do not buy from you. That's genuinely the place I am now when I talk to a person and they have imposter syndrome or they've got mindset issues or they've got like every course that you could possibly buy on earth, but they have not been able to produce a result. And they talk to me, I actually will feel terrible if I do not sell them into my coaching because I know I'm letting them continue to wander and continue to hurt when I have the solution. I have the antidote. So that's a big, big tip. Like, guys, if you're listening, please write that down inside of your notebook right now. Take notes. I see Sydney in here. I see Lindsay in here. Lindsay and Sydney are note takers, and note takers are money makers. Write that down, that you need to be of service, that that is not a secondary thing. That is a primary. Making money is secondary to the primary of being of service.
If you had the cure for cancer, would you feel guilty about selling that? A grand total of 0 of us. Right. So like, Marlon said, if you got a product and it helps people, don't apologize for trying to help people. And yes, you need to eat. This is why sales is good.
Yep. I love it. We got Sydney Nash in here, and Sydney says, I love that. I believe in the product. If you believe in the product or service, then you're doing a disservice not to sell it. And I love that because I've had this conversation with Sydney in the past, and Sydney does social media marketing. She literally helps businesses to grow by getting them out on the marketplace, getting them on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook and all the places. And we had that conversation about like, hey, do you know that you help businesses? And she was like, yeah, like I know I do a good job. Like businesses grow, people get more leads, people generate more opportunities as a result of me helping them out. It's like, awesome. charge them more, right? You know what you're worth. You know you bring value. So let's keep going because I know you got more notes here, and I get excited about this stuff.
I've got
By the way, guys, while Jeff is like looking at the next note, do me 2 favors. One, are you hearing the audio quality well? This is actually my first time doing the Think Big podcast up here live with the studio setup. So I'm just hoping that the audio is coming through. So let me know in the comments if the audio is coming through. And also let me know, do you guys like the camera quality? Like I'm like just drop it into content right now in the comments right now. Let me know if the content looks good or if we need to change something. I want some feedback. But Jeff, let's keep it rolling here.
This is a dope studio, by the way. Like if any of you guys get to come over here, like it's got the cameras, got the light. Like, this is really cool. So, okay. So what Marlon talked about earlier, guys, remember how he was saying that good coaches, good mentors, they have the ability to ask you really good questions. If they don't ask you good questions, then they suck, which I 100% agree with. Okay. So here's some questions that we can all ask ourselves, and we should be every day. Here's how you can internally analyze even some of the issues you're facing. If I had to advise someone else who was in my exact situation, what would I tell them to do?
Ooh,
if I had to advise someone who is in my exact situation, like identical twin, parallel Earth, dealing with the same thing, what would I advise them to do? And so what Andy was pointing out is a lot of times, guys, the reason we struggle with this, even self-diagnosing our own problem, we're too close to it. We're too close to that situation. We feel trapped by it. And so here's the follow-up question to that. So what decisions would you make if you knew that no feelings would be hurt? What decisions would you make if you knew that nobody's feelings would be hurt? Now, that's not to say go out there and steal your friend's car because it's not going to hurt his feeling. That's not what he's talking about. But again, it's about giving your mind permission to think through more of these issues than you've previously limited yourself in. That was really good.
Keep going. I'm zooming the camera in because Elena just said zoom the camera in.
Okay. And so here's what the third question was. Some of you have mentors out there. Maybe Marlon's your mentor, maybe it's me, maybe it's Pace, whoever it is. All right. Think of that person in your head, or even kind of the picture perfect mentor in your brain. If your mentor was to replace you, what would your mentor replace? What would your mentor do? If your mentor had to replace you, what would that look like? Again, kind of the same question of, if there was somebody else in my situation, what would I advise them? Kind of the same bend of the question. What would your mentor do if they had to replace you?
I like that. So, and let me clarify that, right? Or I'm asking for myself, like when you say, like, if your mentor had to replace you, like if your mentor had to take you out of your situation and put someone in your situation who would crush it, like who would they put there? Or if they had to take like a characteristic about you out and replace it with a new characteristic?
Yeah, really a characteristic about yourself.
Okay, so like if they were looking at me and they saw, let me pull that habit out, or let me pull that thought process out and let's put something new in there, this is what they would take out of me.
Right. And most of us would say something like, oh, well, my mentor would take out discomfort, or like, that's an easy one. Like, okay, fair enough. And then can you feel that new you that's been created by your mentor taking that piece out and replacing it with something else?
Okay, and I get that because, like, for instance, someone might say, my mentor might take out of the procrastination, the fact that I wake up in the morning and I hit the snooze button. I said I wanted to wake up at 6 a.m., but I'm not rolling out of bed till 7:15, right? But like if my mentor were watching me and he were there everywhere I went, that would be the stuff he was calling me out on. Like he would call me out on that and he would rip that out of my life. When the alarm clock goes off at 6, we get up, something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think about, one of my mentors, we all have lots of mentors. One of my fitness trainer, his name's Brian Barth out of Houston, awesome dude. And what he's continuing to show me is like the thing he would replace in me is my own self-limitations, like when we're working out and lifting weights. Like, because my stupid brain always wants to quit a little early. Like, what? I was like, dude, my quads feel like jello. And somehow he finds an extra 5 or 10 reps in there that I didn't think were possible. That's the thing that he would replace. And so I'm continually like building up the evidence that he's right, but trying to bask in that new identity that yeah, I do have more fuel in the tank.
I love
I
that.
can take myself, like, this is David Goggins' mantra entirely.
Dude, I freaking love that. And sometimes it does take having another person in front of you to pull that out of you.
Yeah.
That's why it's so cool that you went out. Like, because you're someone, by the way, if you don't know Jeff Smith, like this dude is an absolute monster. Like he's a leader inside the Texas market. He helps people get their deals done, get their first deals. He coaches people on how to do sales. Clearly, listening to him communicate, he communicates at a high level. And what's cool is for all the success that he's had and that he's continuing to have, he's still putting himself in rooms to listen to people more successful than him, to listen to people who have different perspectives. So always seek out good coaches and continue to grow. Growth is an infinite game. So what else we got inside that notebook of goodies?
Yes. So Dean is about to come up here. And so the last thing that Andy talked about, there's a lot of us, like, this is me, okay? Like, just between you and me, okay? Marlon's not here. I kind of got a secret I want to share with you. Okay. A lot of us, whenever maybe we've signed up for a mentorship program, maybe you've signed up for a personal trainer, you've signed up for something. Your intention is to learn and grow. That's awesome, and you should do that. And we should invest in, Sam Singh talks about it. It's the oh gosh, it's
Ignorance debt.
The ignorance debt. Yes, you have to pay it. Okay. But here's the thing. You don't just pay the ignorance debt with dollars, you pay it with all your effort too.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to commit to spend that amount of money, you're going to make every one of those freaking dollars worth it. And so your commitment the next time that you sign up for something, and for whatever you've signed up now, maybe it's a book you're reading. It doesn't matter what it is. You've committed to something. Here's what you're going to promise myself. I will be the best freaking student this teacher and mentor has ever seen. I will be whatever they tell me to do, I will do it 10 times better, 10 times more. I'll get 10 times the result. Because here's the thing. You probably experienced this too. Marlon and I are both coaches. We love working with those students that we see like they're implementing, they're going strong, they're making stuff happen. We want to see more success for them. And that's not to say like we're going to ignore the rest of our students. But if you've coached like a kid's soccer team or baseball team or whatever, like you experience the same thing, right? Like, man, that kid's like crushing it. He's always hitting line drives. Like, let's level that guy up. So be that person in whatever coaching or experience group you're in, or even in that book, and just be like, I'm going to be the poster child. Like, I'm going to be on that dude's podcast because I crushed it.
Dude, what's real is like, guys, we have favorites. Like, I don't care what anyone says. We straight up, I have favorites, right? I like to say I treat all my clients equal, and I try my best to. But when people come in and they start executing at a high level, and I started laughing because I'm thinking about one of the early clients I had, a girl by the name of Alexis Morgan. And she came in, and I swear that must have been the conversation she had in her mind when she came and started working with me, because anytime I gave her something to do, that girl executed immediately. Like things that would normally take a person a week to do, she was getting back to me within 18 hours saying, okay, I did it. Now what do you need me to do? I'm like, you did all of it? She's like, I did everything you said. What do I need to do next? And when we get those sort of people, you just naturally, you want to pour into them. Now, what's cool, the reason we're bringing this up is because you have the ability to be that person in your world. You have the ability to look at the last course you bought, to look at the book you're reading right now and say, you know what? People are going to want to know about this book. People are going to want to know about this course because of how much success I have with it. Right. I'm going to make this thing so damn good that the people running this program are going to ask, can I sponsor you? Can we make you an affiliate partner? Like that's how you should be thinking. That's how we think when we go into programs. That's how you thought when you went and spent time with Andy. You're like, all right, I'm going to be the reason people want to go and do his next workshop, because I'm going to come back with so much value from what I just went to that people are going to think that's the secret sauce, when really it's just me executing at the highest level.
I mean, there's a mentor I'm planning to join in October. Like that's already my new mindset going in. Like I am going to dominate this so much better than any of his past students, and it won't even be close. And so I'm starting for that. Okay, so guys, that was round one. Like this was just kickoff. Everybody's all amped. The energy is just through the roof. Like the MC like basically had to do nothing. Everyone was amped up, ready to go, which is not surprising because if you've seen Andy's Instagram, he's drawing in a certain audience anyway. So round one is over and Dean Graziosi comes out. And there was a couple of points that he brought up that I wanted to share with you guys in particular. So the first thing, and I've struggled with this in a lot of ways. And I've heard this question before, and I'm still working to absorb it fully. And then the question is, what if life is happening for me, not to me?
I love that.
All those you all know what it is, those hardships in the past of life. This is not to say they weren't hard. That's not to say they didn't have an impact on you. That's not what he's saying. But what if life is happening for you, not to you? Those difficulties you went through. I mean, I lived in the Middle East for 3 years. This was like the hardest period of my life. What if that's not happening to me, but it was for me to grow me into something bigger? Even if you don't believe it in this exact moment, if you start reframing it, you can now reclaim the power and throw off the handcuffs that are holding you back because of whatever this past hurt or difficulty was. Again, none of us are saying that these were good circumstances. Like, oh, let's be happy and joyful. Like, people have gone through divorces and lost children, like bad stuff, okay? And I don't know how all of that works. But if you can reframe it to say, I can become stronger after this, maybe there's somebody else that you're going to run into later in life. This is what I believe about my time in the Middle East. It was one of the most difficult experiences of my life ever. And now I look at it and I say, I'm going to run into somebody later in life. I think I've already run into a couple of them, but I'm going to run into somebody later in life who went through that same painful experience. And I'm going to be able to help that person get out of that funk faster than it took me.
Yep. I have this mantra that I say, and I say it every morning, that everything in life happens for my growth and benefit. Everything. There is nothing that does not happen for my growth and benefit. And what's funny is Jeff, and I think I told you this, I've been personally on my own spiritual journey this year, and I've been going through scripture much more. And there's a verse in scripture that essentially, I'm going to paraphrase it. It says, rejoice for everything, rejoice. Right? Like, it literally tells you to rejoice, like, be happy about everything in life. It doesn't say be happy about the good things. It doesn't say be happy about the bad things. It said be happy about all things. Yeah. All things are for your growth and benefit if you understand how to mentally reframe, if you understand perspective, if you understand that you are in control about how you feel about the things that happen to you, not what happens to you. I can't control circumstance. I can't control the weather. I can't control how other people are going to treat you. However, you can control ultimately what it means to you and what you do with what occurs to you. Therefore, you can make everything, every situation for your growth and benefit. And it's funny because I look back and I think I mentioned this to you. When I moved here to Arizona from New York, this was about 2.5 years ago. I loaded up my little car. You saw my little BMW downstairs.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a little coupe. I loaded it up with everything I owned, right? My snowboard, my skateboards, my cameras, my laptop, my backpack, 3 suitcases of all my clothes, my sneakers. I mean, literally everything I owned was stuffed into the car. Like, picture an 18-year-old leaving his house for the first time, except I was 28 years old. And as I'm driving cross country, I'm stopping at friends' places, and I spend a week in Denver before I decide to get back on the road and keep moving again. Now, that morning that I decide to keep moving to come on down to Arizona, I go out to my car, I pop the trunk open, and I notice my skateboard's not there. I'm like, this is weird. I'm a skateboarder, guys. I've been skateboarding since like I was 11 years old. Since the time I've gotten a car, my skateboard has always been in my trunk. Any true skater knows you keep your skateboard on you at all times. So of course it's not in my trunk. So it must be in the back seat. Open the passenger door to look in the back seat, and I don't see my skateboard, but also I'm realizing I don't see my snowboard either. And wait a second, where's my camera? And where's my suitcase? And oh my God, I've been robbed. Everything I owned was stolen from that car that day. Everything. And I'm 2,000 miles away from home. I have $3,000 in my bank account. I have no family in Arizona, and I'm in the middle of Denver, just realizing everything I owned was stolen except for the backpack on my back. And you know what's interesting? In that moment, I did not get upset. I didn't get pissed off. And I'm not lying, guys, because actually I was on the phone when this happened, and my friends on the phone were like, wait a second, you didn't just get robbed. Because I said, I I just got robbed. I said, no,
You're a better man than me. I'd be livid.
dude, they're like, you didn't just get robbed. I'm like, no, I did for real, guys. Like, no, you didn't. I'm like, all right, this is kind of bothering me. Why do you not believe I just got robbed? They're like, no one would be this calm. And so I flipped the FaceTime camera on, show them that my car is totally empty. And they're like, oh, shoot, you got robbed. I'm like, yeah, of course. Like, guys, why would I lie about something like this? And I said, why didn't you believe me? And again, they said no one would be this calm. But here's what happened. In that moment of it happening, right? Terrible situation by most people's definition. In that moment, I reframed it as, well, growing up my entire life, I was born into middle class with immigrant parents who worked their butts off to give me what they called a head start, put me in a good school district, put me in a good school, educate me, do the whole nine. And so I've always been afraid to screw up this head start that my family had provided for me. I'd always been afraid to lose the things that they worked so hard to give me as a start off point. Therefore, I was playing the game of life with not the mindset of how do I win. I was playing the game of life with the mindset of how do I not lose? And so now, living out the actual scenario of literally losing it all except for my health, I started to realize, oh, I can just go make all this stuff back again. It's just stuff, right? I'm still here. I'm still the things that are most valuable in my life. I still have my health, my mind, my ability to go and live, an opportunity to have a second day. And so recognizing that it was in the ability to control the narrative and recognize that me losing all my stuff wasn't me getting my stuff stolen. It was me getting the opportunity to learn how to play the game of life to win. Perspective matters, y'all. Perspective matters. So let's keep going. Sorry, I just hijacked that, but I freaking love this.
No, keep building it up. And that's actually the next topic we're going to talk about, building yourself up. And Alex Hormozy actually has a really good talk about it. And Dean kind of hit a similar topic. He just said it a little bit differently. But one of my favorite videos from Alex Hormozy is he talks about a concept of building your skill stack. Building your skill stack. So here's the idea, everybody. If the more skills that you can layer on top, which actually augment each other, then the more successful, the more money you're going to make. So here's the idea. If you know how to math and do basic arithmetic, it's not really a skill that's going to make you a lot of money. Start layering it with bookkeeping and you're going to make some more money. Layer it with accountants and doing that function, you make more money. Layer it on with some highly advanced tax strategies for major businesses and corporations, and now you're making a pile of money, okay? And this is kind of what Dean talked about as well, is just simply asking yourself, what are the capabilities that I need to succeed? Who has those capabilities that I need to exceed, and how do I extract the information from them to get there? And what is stopping me from doing that thing? So for a lot of people, for example, you've probably run into this before. So, well, Marlon, I will work with you on coaching once I get this big skill. Once I have achieved this other thing, then I will get it. But it's literally the thing that's stopping them. So people talk to me all the time, like, Jeff, I want to sign up for your coaching course. I see your students. I see the success they're getting. And I'm 100% going to do it as soon as I get this first deal.
Yep.
And I'm like, dude, that is literally what's holding you back right now. That is literally the thing stopping you from getting this deal. You have the knowledge of real estate and comps. You have the knowledge of at least what sub-2 creative finance is. You have the knowledge of cash deals and assignment. And the next thing in your skill stack that's lacking is the communication portion. And it's this barrier stopping you from getting to that next spot. Now, I get where they're coming from. Signing up for coaching, investing in yourself, this is not a small decision. Let's not pretend that it's chump change, okay? I'm not going to say that. But if this is the barrier and the the destination you want is on the other side, it only makes sense.
You know what's funny? This is what I came to realize from studying large companies, Amazons and the Teslas of the world, is exactly what you're saying, right? Where people will set these goals if they want to get here. But Jeff, I'm going to come and I'm going to do your coaching. I'm going to learn sales from you after I go and complete my first sale with no skill. I got no clue what I'm doing, but I'm going to go make a sale happen. And then I'll come get sales training.
I'll come take piano lessons from you as soon as I master the basics.
Right. It's just it's backwards thinking, because what happens is people are living how I used to live, which is you're playing this game of how do I not lose? And so ultimately you're concerned about holding on to the little bits of things you've gathered up until this point. And I look at life as a video game. I look at business as a video game. And so when you're playing these video games, the goal is to get to level 100. Let's say level 100 is the number one level, and you get armor on level 1 and armor on level 10 and armor on level 20. Well, how silly would it be to be a character at level 100 still wearing your level 10 armor? What I'm saying is everything that you gather along the way to level 100 is ultimately sacrificable, right? You have to be willing to trade in the things that you're gathering on the lower levels to get to that higher level. And when I looked at the companies like Tesla and I looked at the companies like Amazon, what I would realize with these companies is everything that they would take in, they were willing to, especially Nike. If anyone hasn't read the book Shoe Dog, go read Shoe Dog. Nike is an inspiring company. Phil Knight is insane because every time he would make money and he would earn and he would get to that next level, he was willing to push it all back in to the business, all back into the company because he was committed to going all in and growing to being $1 billion worldwide enterprise where everybody's wearing his shoes. And so ultimately, if you're saying you want a certain life and you are not there yet, that means the life that you have currently needs to be up for trade in so that you can get the next life that you want. But if you're trying to hold on to the current life and create the next life, I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way. It's like trying to rock climb and you're refusing to let go of the hold you're on. Well, at some point, you actually need to let go of this hold to reach up and grab the next one. This is critical. And this is a mistake a lot of people make. You're unwilling to let go of the good you've gathered for the great you desire.
I think that's 100% that's true. Like a good life can really get in the way of a great life, right? That's a hard thing to overcome. I think also like tie also the other lesson that I learned earlier. If you know, for example, that the skill set that Marlon provides in his coaching, if you know that is the barrier, and you can tie that with the other lesson of whoever I work with, I will be the best damn student they ever saw. A lot of people struggle with signing up for any kind of mentorship and coaching. And one of those struggles is, what if I don't perform?
Dude.
What if I don't get it? But if you go in there and you're like, I'm going to viciously attack this goal, I will be the best damn student they've ever seen. Matter of fact, I'm going to outdo him even if that's not ultimately what happens, you will be 10 times further and capture 10 times more value than jumping in and just treating it as an audiobook and plugging away each day like normal.
Dude, you guys got to tap into that competitive nature. It's funny because even Jeff doesn't know this. So actually, earlier today, I found myself thinking while I was running some errands and getting some stuff done here at the house. I was thinking to myself, I'm like, Jeff's going to be hanging out here for a month. And I'm excited to have Jeff in the house. Like his energy is awesome. He's such a good dude. I'm like excited. And I was like, man, like, how do I make it that while Jeff is out here, this is going to be the best experience he's ever had? And I was thinking about it while I was working out this morning. That's where I was, because I was inside that room thinking about this. I was like, damn, how do I make it so that Jeff has the best experience, that I get the most value from him being here, that he gets the most value from me, that this is just an explosion of energy and good time? And this is the sort of mindset. As I start to ask those questions, guess what? Questions produce answers. The sort of answers that start coming to my mind start showing me, oh, we can create content. Oh, we can go out and do that. I mean, and by the way, guys, we're already doing it right now. And these are the things that you want to do. Tap into that bit of a competitive nature on what would it look like for me to be the best at everything I do, not just the few things, like everything that you are going to take into your life. Like me being friends with Sam, right? Sam Singh, I freaking love you, dude. My goal is to be Sam Singh's best friend. Right, like I want to make it so that Sam.
You can't have him. He's mine,
dude. I'm gonna be the best friend Sam has ever had.
Fight you for
right,
him.
and whatever. Like if it's like Sam's like, oh, dude, my friends are like freaking successful business entrepreneurs. Cool, I'm gonna be the best entrepreneur that Sam knows. He's like, my friends go on the most epic adventures. Awesome, I'm gonna go on the most epic adventures. Like this is the way your mind starts to think. This is how you want to get. You want to get to that point. And of course, because of becoming the best at everything, it will limit how many things you can actually do. And this is where you're going to have to learn discernment. You're going to have to learn what you say yes and no to. So I'm going to let Jeff bring it back. I would feel like you're going to be saying that at some point, telling people like what they like, helping them pay attention to what they can say yes and no to. Because you mentioned that earlier when you talked about focus. But I'm going to bring it back to Jeff because I'm still actively listening and learning right now.
So we started to move on, and Dean and Andy were kind of playing off of each other, and they're good friends, and all the rest of it, which is really cool. So Andy comes back. And you kind of feel good when you hear somebody like preaching the same message as you,
Yep.
right? And so Andy started talking a few sales components. I was like, that's what I teach. Yep. Like I'm feeling good about this. Like we're preaching. Okay. So here's some of the things, and this is what I teach. And so one of the exercises I have my own students do is I have them create a list. And anybody who's not in my program, just like literally write this down, do this exercise, save it for later. Okay. You take at the top of a sheet of paper, write down the motivation list or your potential customer that you are going to work with. Or Marlon's case, maybe his ideal client for his coaching, or his the seller for of property, whatever it is. And then write down all of the issues, the potential problems that this person would be experiencing that would make them want to reach out to you. So, Marlon's ideal client maybe, has been struggling with consistency per day, and he's got to level up. So the idea is like get into the head of the person that you're dealing, understand their fears and issues. And so like that's what my own students will do. They'll write down, if I have a foreclosure lead, these are all the potential issues they could be facing. It doesn't mean they have all 500 of them, but these are the things, and you start to recognize that as you're speaking with that person, like, got it. I understand what you're dealing with because I'm hearing the symptoms. And then you can dive deeper into the what if you did get this resolved? What if you don't get this resolved? And that was one of the big things there. Understand their fears and worries. And that's why that exercise, I make everybody do it, because one, that's how I learned. But two, if you can't get inside their head and anticipate their problems, then you're going to be blindsided every single time.
Dude, this is so good because this is the concept of knowing your client better than they know themselves sometimes. And this is why people would want to work with you, right? Like the reason, if you're in real estate, the homeowner wants to work with you is because you understand their problem and their situation even better than they understand their problem and situation, which gives them confidence that you can be the person that guides them through it. But if you haven't taken the time, and by the way, this doesn't mean you need to go and live their problems. I explained this funny enough, I was talking to one of my coaching clients the other day about this exact topic. And I explained to them, I was like, well, think about it. How many male doctors are OGYM? The doctors that work on women's genitals, right? Like I don't know what it is because I've never been to that doctor. But essentially, you have a doctor who understands the female anatomy. Now, does that doctor, as a male doctor, does he have a female anatomy? No, he's a man, right? He's got different anatomy, and yet he still understands their body, their problem, their issues, because he took the time to study. He took the time to understand what their situation is. He probably interviewed his patients and clients to understand what does it feel like, what hurts, how does it make you feel, how is it affecting your life, how is it affecting your day, so that he can then come in and communicate to them and serve them at the absolute highest level. And so this is what you need to recognize if you're going to be serious about your business. If you're going to go from doing this as a hobby to being a professional, it means you're going to do the necessary work to properly prepare yourself to be of the highest service. And again, if this sounds like too much work, you mentioned it earlier. Like if all this sounds like too much, odds are you probably don't actually want the thing you say you want. The idea of me getting better as a performance coach, as a mindset coach, as a communicator, as a speaker, that sounds like fun to me. Like when I think about doing the work, and it's like in my mind, I see this montage of me like going into the mental gym, of me reading the books, of me studying. That sounds like fun. For my anime nerds, I think of like Full Metal Alchemist. I think of like when the boys are in the library, like when they're studying alchemy, like I look at it like that, like, oh, like I'm just get to go through these books and learn all this stuff. Like I'm getting paid to get better at the thing I love to do so I could serve more people. Hell yeah, sign me up. So yeah, I get excited about this. By the way, this is so much fun. I love this. This is the second ever time we've done a live episode with like two people in the same room ever. One only other time was me and Sam when we were in Mammoth, California last year. So this is super fun right now.
That was great. And I like the analogy that Marlon has in my own sales training. This is the analogy. This is why people like working with me is the idea of everyone hates salesmen because we think of the car salesman, right? Like this is the person that comes to mind that we hate in sales. Why? Because they're pushy. They just try, like all they're trying to do is get their commission check. We don't feel like they actually care about us. And so one of the other points here is like, look, and Andy came up, he's selling cars. Like, people aren't buying from you because they understand you. They're buying from you because you understand them. Right? People don't buy from you because they understand you. Oh, I get Jeff's business model. They don't give a crap about me. But when they feel like I understand them, that's when they're going to make a move.
Yep.
And so, tying this back with what Marlon's talking about, I think I'm going to rebrand myself kind of the real estate sales doctor, because it's just, I use this analogy. I use the analogy constantly because everybody can get it. I just told you guys about this exercise of getting into the head of your client, like going through all the issues. And Marlon brought up the idea of an actual medical doctor. Well, what do the doctors do? They study all the diseases, all the ailments. They study all the symptoms. So when they start hearing the symptoms, they're like, oh, you have that. And then what do? They also study the treatments. And now they're done with medical school and they go out and they start getting the experience and the wisdom. We need to be in any kind of sales that you're doing. You need to have that same kind of map to become the absolute best. What is my client dealing with? What are the symptoms that are going to show that indicate to me this is the problem you're actually having? Just because I inherited a house, that is not the problem. That is a symptom of something else. And once we dive deeper into it, then you say, it's not that you inherited the house that's the problem. The problem is you live 1,000 miles away, there's a second mortgage on it, and it's about to be foreclosed because you can't afford 2 mortgages. That's the disease that's killing the patient. And you have to be able to ask enough good questions as that diagnostic person to understand what's happening. And imagine if car salesmen acted the same way. Imagine if they actually asked you, hey, tell me about what you're looking for. Tell me about what it is about this future car that it needs to do. What is it about your previous car that you don't like, that you want to make darn sure that remains in the past? When you take this car out, what are the people going to feel like when you're around? How do you want to feel when you're driving this thing around? And if we actually got the impression that those folks cared about what we were doing, we would have this great experience. But we hate car salesmen because we don't feel like they'll do that. But when a doctor is selling us, and they are salesmen, they're selling us their wisdom, experience, and training, we are happier in hell to pay for it. Why? Because they're solving the issue we actually have. You have to also understand your clients. And once they feel like you get it, then you're willing to work with them. That's why you love getting questions from the doctor. And I heard Marlon, like, you kind of get pissed off when you don't get enough questions. They're just like, you don't get it. You're prescribing me Tylenol, and I feel like my arm is shattered. This isn't lining up. But once you feel like that, like, man, this doctor gets it. And if the doc says, I know exactly what you're dealing with, without question, other people have dealt with it, this thing will do the job and help you. You're like, where do I sign it? Like, shut up and take my money.
Yo, who feels like they just got a masterclass on sales? This is fire. Guys, drop some fire in the comments if you feel like you just got a masterclass. Also, real quick, I got to say this. If you're first time to the channel right now, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you're getting value, because these are what the podcast episodes will look like. This is what we do. We bring good people like this, because as Jeff just said that, I'm like, dude, why has no one ever said that to me? Like the way you just worded it, that if you're there and you're looking at, okay, I'm going to understand all of my clients' potential problems, right? And I'm going to study every problem, and then I'm going to go and study all the solutions for it. Well, damn, that's a very good freaking offer. That's a good product. That's a good service. Like, that's the person I want to work with, if that's the sort of mind that they have. Like, I'm willing to pay money, because at the end of the day, if I have a problem, I want that problem solved. I want the problem solved more than I want the money in my pocket. The money is only useful because it can solve my problems in life. That's the only reason I want the money. So if I can exchange the money for the solution, I will. And if I get a person like Jeff, who's going to be obsessively thinking about all of my types of situations, he's going to think about my life situation more than I've thought about my life situation. And then on top of that, he's also taking the time to go and understand all the answers to be able to spit it back to me like a human chat GPT. That's the person I want to work with. Guys, like, that is, like you called it, that's the roadmap. That's how you build a business. That's how you build an offer. That's how you build value. I hear people talk about deliver value, deliver value. You got to give value. What does that mean? He just explained exactly how to deliver value.
Here's the thing, guys. Like all of the stuff we're saying, a lot of you who are tuning into this, if you're a big fan of, Marlon, like mindset coaching, there's some entity. Probably the most of you guys listening to this are in real estate of some way. But all the principles that I just talked to you about, those are sales principles that apply everywhere. What if you applied it to your W-2 right now that you're doing? Do you think you'd have more impact there? Do you think you'd probably make a little bit more money while you're at it? Of course you would. One of my students, he sells hurricane-proof windows. And like he's pursuing real estate like that. Like that's my angle. That's my niche target. But all of these principles apply. Well, he took it without even thinking about it. He applied it to window sales and he just like crushed several months in a row because it was the same thing. He diagnosed the problems of the people he was working with and then believed his product actually served them. And he showed them through questions, this is the problem you're dealing with. And this is the right prescription and treatment plan that you need.
And this is why I like the way you teach, by the way. I never mentioned this to you. Jeff, when he teaches from a standpoint of he goes to the frameworks, right? Like, so he's in a niche with the work that he does, but his principles, he works with principles and he works with frameworks. So when you work with a principle or you work with a framework, you're working with something that's foundational and can be applied across industries. This is why I love frameworks, right? Like this is why people like listening to guys like Alex Hormozy, because Alex Hormozy does the same thing Jeff does. They break things down to their fundamentals because fundamentals can be reapplied and they can be taken with you. They are transferable. So when you 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, want to go and do something new, this skill will now come with you into your next endeavor. This is why it's so important. So freaking love that. What else do we got, man? I'm enjoying this.
Yeah. So,
also, everyone else seems to be enjoying this. I'm seeing a lot of fires in the chat.
Oh, good. All right. So next thing. So Steve Weatherford comes in. And for those of you guys who don't know who Steve Weatherford is, Steve Weatherford was the kicker for the New Orleans Saints and was in the game when they won the Super Bowl. And then he was voted like the most fit.
Also, real quick, I'm going to let you keep going. I just realized we are like already 9 minutes over the hour and we still got people tuning in. So guys, if you are getting value, again, do me a favor, like this, drop a comment, and also share this because apparently we are going longer and I'm okay with this because I am genuinely plugged in right now to this conversation. So if you're getting value from this, be sure to share this episode out with a friend right now. Send this to 3 people and then comment done. This way we can keep going because we're going to keep this show going here tonight. And here's what I like. When you're getting value, that means the people in your circle would also get value from this. I love when Sam sends me videos. I love when people text me like, hey, you need to watch this clip or watch this YouTube. So be a friend, share this out with 3 people, comment done, and we'll get right back to what you're saying here with Steve.
Yeah. And guys, it's like seriously, like I paid $1,000 for this whole thing. I am just reading through all my notes, and that's not to say I need you to send me a bunch of DMs. Like, here's $20 for my ticket, just to say like this stuff is valuable. Like I'm applying it. Like I'm taking this super seriously for myself, and I want to share that with you. I want you guys to level up bad too. So let's keep going here. So Steve Weatherford comes on, kicker, New Orleans Saints. He was on the team. They won the Super Bowl. And he kind of laughed about it. He was like, dude, there would be like, it was weird as a kicker. Like I'd go in, there's some games that I didn't even make a punt and I got a check afterwards. This is like the most bizarre thing. Then he goes into the Super Bowl and just like drops the ball within the 10-yard. He's like, his best game of my life. It was during that game. So it was amazing. And he was voted like the most fit NFL player in the league for several seasons in a row. I don't remember what it was. And so Steve comes in and he's like, guys, I had everything this world could possibly offer. I had it all. I had the career, I had the money, I had the wife, I had the kids, I had the house, I had the whole thing. And then at some point, I don't remember exactly when this started to happen, but some things started to occur. And basically, like, I think it was like 3 years ago that he kind of sat in front of his kids and says, hey kids, your mom doesn't love me anymore. We're getting a divorce.
Whoa.
And he goes and he heads out for this Airbnb. And it is not a nice Airbnb. Like this is kind of the, damn, somebody's renting this thing. Like it did not look pretty. He showed us the photo. And he only had about an hour with us, so there's only so much of the nitty gritty to go into. But don't exactly use your imagination. But suffice it to say, we always we always have this impression with athletes. We know mentally that this is not the case, but feelings, we feel like these guys have everything. Their world's perfect, and it's far from it. Any celebrity you can think of, their life is not perfect.
Mhm.
Okay, we feel like it is, and even when you hang this up and you go look on Instagram, you will feel that mentally. We know it's not the case. Anyway, so his world is like crashing all around him, and he tells the story about when he was a little kid. Um, like some bad stuff was happening, and I don't know how much of that he really wants to share, so I'll kind of skip it. But the point is, um, he had met this pastor like 6 months before this really terrible thing happened, and so he commits at like age 11 that he's going to be a follower of Christ. This really bad thing happens 6 months later, and it kind of wrecks him a bit for a good chunk of his life afterwards. Now, fast forward, his wife's like, "We're done here, taking the kids." All like his world is crashing around him, and this is not like, "Oh, I'm going to fight her to the bitter end." Like he knows like this thing is bad, and somewhere along the way, he ends up going to this men's retreat with this one church, and he looks down and he's like, "That's the same guy from when I was 11.
Wow.
And now my eldest son is with me, who's now walking down to the altar to commit himself." And he said, like, this spark of energy just washed over him. And he kind of looked to his buddy to his left, and he's like, "Are you feeling this?" He's like, "No, I don't know what the hell you're talking about." Looks to the guy to the right, "Are you feeling this?" And he's like, "No, man, like I ate a big lunch. That's about all I'm feeling." He goes, "Does anybody know where my kid is?" And it's like, "No, he's down there. It's okay." He's like, "Oh my God." So anyway, he gets to the end of this, figures out a way to like put things back together with his wife. He starts as like, "I'm sorry, like I have royal, like things are going to change and I'm going to show it to you." And like the next 3 weeks, like he just becomes this totally different person. And some of you have seen Steve Weatherford, like now he's running a very strong Christian ministry. And I don't know really anything about him, but like you hear the story and you go, what if that kind of radical change can happen to you too? And there's a lot of us who don't believe that. Like, oh, well, that's just for kind of the chosen few. Like, I cannot be a part of that. And there's been days I felt like that too. Like, I feel like I'm still waiting on quite a few things, but like, you can't give up hope that this isn't just the way it is. So, one thing he talked to me, he was pretty open about this. Like, he was, he kind of laughed about it. He was like, I was struggling on Pornhub. Like I signed up for the premium membership. Like it was bad, man. And so the point is, like he's like, well, I guess that's just the way it is. I guess that's just the way it is. And like that truly is a disease that's just like killing guys like everywhere, like mentally wrecking them. And so many guys are struggling with this. But the point is, he had come to the conclusion, like, I guess that's just the cards of it. It's just the way it is. Like there's no change that's possible. And this guy is now like his message is no, like those dark places can change. It can be changed through, a relationship with God, and then combine that with Andy Elliott's idea of, actually, let me go to this thing first and I'll tie it back with Andy. So Steve's message, you said there's like 3 steps here: release, receive, commit. Okay. Now remember, this is still Andy Elliott's stage, and this is an NFL player who's like one of the biggest man I've ever seen, and he's the kicker, right? If we had an offensive lineman, I'd probably be like, "Oh my God," like whatever. And so he's like, "Say it with your chest," like just yelling. And of course, everybody's here for it because we got the Andy energy going on. Release, receive, commit. And I'm kind of sitting there going, what the hell does that mean? Like you haven't explained it to me yet. You just told me to start shouting. And so he does eventually come full circle. Here's what it means. Release the burden and the heaviness and the guilt and the shame about it, and release that to God. You're not meant to carry this thing around anymore. Receive the forgiveness and the grace of it, and then commit to the repentance from it, right? Release the burden, the shame, the guilt, the heaviness. You are not meant to carry that anymore. You're not designed for it. Receive the grace and forgiveness, and then commit to the repentance afterwards. Okay. Now, on the commitment side, what I was tying together in my head is a lot of times we kind of like, for any of you who are religiously inclined, like I am a Christian. So, my thing, and I've been guilty of this, like, well, I feel really bad about this. I can't go to God and talk about this. I'm too ashamed to do it. Or even if I say that I'm going to receive the grace, I feel like this thing just keeps coming back to haunt me. Right? Paul talks about in one of his letters, he has this thorn in his side, and we're never really sure what this thorn is. We don't get the impression that it's physical. It could have been anything, some kind of temptation. Doesn't matter. Make it up. And this thing never really goes away. And so, if you tie in the commit to repentance, tie it with what Andy said earlier about viciously attacking your goals. So I'm no longer going to passively repent of things. I'm going to viciously fight it. So for some people watching this could be lust. Like that's kind of the obvious one in our culture right now. Like let's just be honest about it. Okay. Viciously fight it. I don't want that corrupting my brain anymore for my future family. Hell to the no. I'm going to fight it until I'm dead. And to be honest, it's so prevalent everywhere. That is the reality. I am going to have to fight that until I am literally dead.
No question about it.
Okay. What are the things that you're carrying around that you feel like is this burden? Maybe that kind of the dog's puke that kind of keeps going back to this biblical reference. What is that thing that you're going back to? And what if you combine it with this idea from Andy's, like, I am going to fight this thing harder than ever, and I am not going to stop because the impact on my family in the future is so great. I'm not tolerating it anymore. And like bask in that power, and then say, I'm going to do it. And that's not to say that you're perfect. And it's not to say you're not even going to trip up, but you are going to fight this actively and make that the difference and reinvent yourself every day to fight it even harder.
And you know what's funny? I like as you're saying this, and I'm guys, like I freaking love this conversation right now. This is about, like Sam just said in the chat, this is a powerful conversation. I find that aggression is so frowned upon right now, and we live in such a cancel culture. We live in such a space where the word fight almost is offensive to some people right now. Like there are some butt cheeks that have literally like squeezed together tight tonight. Like, oh, he said fight. And ultimately that aggression, we need a bit of that to come back, because there are things that are, I'm just going to say, flat out wrong, right? Like there are things when you are losing your control to substances, when you're losing your control to lust, when you're losing your control to things that are ultimately making your life terrible, not like they're not benefiting you. They are actually stealing from you. They're taking away from you. They're taking away from your family. They're taking away from society, and you keep giving into it. You need to stand up and fight. You need to stand up and look it in the eye like it's a bully, and you need to defend yourself, and you need to aggressively, not just defend, not just be on the defense, but attack, go after it, right? Like when I look at, if there's a bad guy out there, do I want to wait for the bad guy to go and do some more heinous crimes before I say, hey, let's go get him and stop him? Or do I want to be preemptive so that he cannot cause further damage, right? Like if I've got a military, if I've got a police force, I'm hoping the police, I'm hoping the military, I'm hoping the good guys are not just sitting there passively saying, well, we're just going to wait until they
see how this shakes
the
out.
Button. Yeah, we'll just see what happens. Maybe he doesn't do anything again. Who knows? No, I want them to aggressively go out and find the bad guy and subdue him. I want them to put the bad guy down. In your life, look at the bad habits. In your life, look at the things that are causing you to be destructive and stop it. Kill it. It's a bad guy. It is a cancer. Rip it out with no remorse. Relentlessly. Be aggressive. Tap into that killer instinct and aim it at the negative in your life. So I love this, man, because it just, people need permission to go after that.
Yeah. So Steve didn't really touch on this, but this is kind of one of my core beliefs. A lot of people think that the spiritual world is kind of like this fantasy land type of thing. Now, if you're a religious person, it's actually an easier argument to say the spiritual realm is more real than the physical created realm. because we were here second. We weren't actually here first. The spiritual realm was here first. Regardless, though, I mean, think about it. If you believe that too, that the spiritual realm exists, and you'd have to believe that like there are demons that run around who are messing with you.
Yep.
But here's the other thing. There's two particular points. One, if the demons are messing with you and they're trying to fight you because they're trying to keep you away from God, why would you not viciously try and fight off those feelings? Like, we know they're not true. Those little voices in your head, you know, one of them is talking shit to you all the time. You're like, no, it's time to fight that voice off and say, you're full of crap. I'm not listening to it anymore. Right? Here's the other thing I remember. This was a story told to me before. If you are the devil and you're trying to corrupt everyone, you're not going to come out and say, don't believe in God. All right. We're hearing that now. But, you know, if you read the Bible, even the demons believe in God. Like, even the demons know Jesus is like, they say all of this. They don't hide it. They're like, yeah, that's a given. They are more scared of God than we are. And so if you're the devil and if you want to fight everybody, you don't come out and say, don't believe this. You say, there's no urgency. There's no rush. And so what do? We settle into complacency. And that's kind of what I'm trying to share with you guys here. Like, some of us fall into complacency because of that discomfort we talked about earlier. Once I achieve this next level, then I can do the thing. Or once I feel a little better about myself, because I'm kind of ashamed right now of this other thing, once I've kind of gotten over it, then I can move on to the next thing. And the message Andy is like, no more complacency, no more settling for average. And one step further, we're not even settling for better than average. None of it. And I think what Marlon says is entirely true. Like, we've kind of gotten to this point where, like, having that aggression to fight is kind of frowned upon. And I think the guys in particular, like, we got to take back and leverage that aggression in its proper place. We were given that. It was a gift. It was a gift. And we just got to point that in the right direction. You point it in the wrong direction, then it's that toxic bit that everybody hates. I get that. But it doesn't mean get rid of it. Point that weapon in the right direction.
Dude, I love this conversation. I'm just saying this right now. Like, tomorrow,
I'm just reciting what I heard. Like, this isn't just my bit. Like, this is all the stuff I learned.
This is the power of when we come out and communicate. This is the power of the podcast. This is the power of getting around good-minded people. Like, I mean, I know you can feel it because I'm feeling it right now. Like, I'm like him in the church right now. Like, can you feel it? Like, are you feeling this? Like, I'm feeling this, dude. Like, I'm sitting here thinking me and Jeff he's going to say hell no to this. Like, dude, we're going to go run like 10 miles after this because I am feeling amped up.
I did leg day yesterday. I'm still recovering.
This is what happens though. Like, we talk about these kind of things and it starts to enlighten and we start to like this. Guys, we talk about wanting to be a 1%er. You talk about wanting to have a better life. Well, you being here right now for episode 99 of the Think Big podcast, you listening to Jeff, you really taking notes and you absorbing this information into yourself and feeling the energy and recognizing, yeah, I don't want to live a mediocre life, and showcasing that with your actions right now, because you could be watching Netflix, you could be watching HBO Go or Hulu or doing whatever other nonsense. You could be out for happy hour with your friends after work. Instead, you're choosing to be here to better yourself, to empower your mind, to really feed yourself mentally and spiritually with this content and this information. So for that, shout out to you guys for being here again on another Tuesday night. Let's keep rolling because I'm having fun. I'm down to keep going till that notebook is empty.
Yeah, like, I still got more.
if we got Jeff's gonna be like, dude, I got like 3 hours worth of stuff. And you guys let me know, like, are we going too much? Should we stop? Should we do a part 2? Let me know in the comments. Like, we'll go through the next bit right here. And if I see in the comments, you guys are like part two, like, I got to take the kids to bed. I got to go get dinner. Like, if you got things to do and you want to see us do a part 2, we will absolutely make that happen because Jeff and I are going to be creating more content while he's here in the house with me.
You can just listen to it like when we're done and just play it back at 5 times speed or whatever.
Personally, I mean, I'm going to be like re-listening to this myself. So yeah, freaking love this.
Yeah.
So let's keep it going here.
Okay. So Steve Weatherford pretty much wraps up, and one of the things here's the last statement he makes. He goes, amateurs make decisions based on feelings. Pros make decisions based on discipline and commitment. This was an NFL kicker. They told him, thou shalt eat this many carbs, thou shalt not eat this much of whatever, thou shalt eat this much protein. And like these are the commandments that he's living by, right? And you shall work out this. And he's like, this is what I'm doing. Oh, I feel like crap. Doesn't matter. I'm still doing it. Oh, I really feel like having the chocolate shake from Dairy Queen. Don't care. This is what I'm supposed to do. And so, like, ask yourselves, what are those things that I am letting myself getting pushed around by the waves of feelings? It doesn't mean your feelings don't exist. It doesn't mean your motivation doesn't ebb and flow. It sure as hell does with me. But I'm still getting those calls. It's a non-negotiable. Either I'm doing X number of calls or I'm getting X number of contracts today, and there's nothing that's going to stop me from making it happen. Oh, my microphone died. That's an obstacle. Figure it out. Like, Marlon here is like, oh, StreamYard account, dude. What do you do? Is like, well, I guess we're done here, Jeff. Like, StreamYard account just went kaput. I guess we're figure it out. Are you going to be pushed around by the feelings and the convenience of it, or are you truly committed to this? And guys, like, don't hear me like point my finger at you and like, how dare you? But these are real questions we have to ask ourselves. Like, remind ourselves of this every day. I gotta remind myself of this every day.
Yeah,
because there are definitely days I'm just like, oh my god, I am so tired of calling and so tired of no one answering. This is pissing me off. I'm tired of being turned. I'm tired of this not working. I'm tired of whatever. Like, yeah. But I have to remind myself that my commitment to this is going to overpower my feelings. And I have failed many times. There's been days, there's a couple days that I've gotten just like, I do not feel like calling. I'm just going to veg out in front of the TV. And I have failed. All right. But that's why, like, when I reinvent myself every day going forward, when I take that next step to level up, I can start to overcome that. I can start to get to that higher level that I actually want to get to. Did you see Pace's post and story earlier? Like, he was out at the Clever Investor Summit. Some guy walks up to him. Like, everyone who hears this statement, like, you're going to sit and say, yup, I would have said that. They go, Pace, I'm super jealous of your success. Like, you have family, you have business, all this stuff. I'm not jealous of the work that it took.
Then you're not jealous at all. If you're not jealous of the work, you're not jealous. You don't want this.
Yeah.
Because and what's funny, it's the reality right there of if you're waiting till you feel like it, then you're relying on chance, right? Like, you're hoping success happens by chance, because it's a chance. It's lucky if tomorrow you wake up and you feel like doing the thing. Even the things you love, and check this out, there are things that I absolutely love to do that still require discipline and effort and energy to get myself to begin doing it. I love working out, but there are mornings I don't want to get up and go and physically start working out. I love coaching people. I love working on mindset. I love helping people out. There are days where I don't want to be in front of people. I don't want to turn on for them, right? Like, there are days I want to just veg out in front of a TV like everybody else. I love business. There are days I want nothing to do with talking to my bookkeeper or talking to my CPA. And yet the discipline dictates that I show up again. And to Jeff's point, right? Like, please don't let this feel like we are better than thou, because we make mistakes. However, what I've learned is it's okay to make a mistake. It's not okay to continue making the same mistakes twice, right?
Failure is feedback.
It's inevitable. Oh, I love that. Failure is feedback. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. Just when it happens, how you respond to it, that's on you. That's your capacity. That's your capability. So this is freaking gold.
Yeah. So that was round 3. Now we're ready for round 4. And then Jacqueline wraps up with round 5 at the end. And,
all right,
and we had lunch at some point. I wasn't paying attention.
So you guys got the 2 more rounds, more rounds inside here. Also, people, by the way, I don't know if you were reading the chat. People were like, love it. Lindsay says, this is amazing. Karen says, keep going and do a part 2. Lindsay says, keep going. Peter says, bring him into school. Peter says, non-negotiable. Savan says, just the thing I needed right now. And Sydney says, making it. Ineffective Christian is the devil's game. Us women need y'all's protection. I love that, Sydney. And Peter, dude, I love that by the way, I appreciate that this group, like, we could take this, we could have a conversation about spirituality. We could have a conversation about Christianity, about scripture, about God. I personally love this kind of conversation. And these are the sort of conversations that used to scare me. I used to be afraid because I didn't want to make people uncomfortable. And here's the thing, right? If I'm afraid, it's kind of like what Dean was saying earlier. if you're afraid of like, oh, well, it's a little uncomfortable, but knowing that saying this can help someone else live a better life, have a stronger faith walk, have stronger confidence in themselves, just be the best version of themselves. It's messed up for me not to say it, to not have this kind of conversation, to not speak our truth. Even if there's a person listening right now and they don't believe what we believe, that's okay. That's like being a doctor with the antidote for the person in the room. There's 10 people in the room and only 5 people have the sickness that you can cure. But saying, well, since the other 5, I can't cure them, I'm not going to say anything about the antidote I am holding that can help the first 5. It's messed up. Save who you can save. Save them proudly.
I'm gonna give a couple shout. Lindsay Moorhead. So she's one of my students. She's absolutely crushing it. Like
her beast.
Her progress has been super duper impressive. Like that lady, like she took it to heart before we even said it. Like she was gonna be the best damn student she could. So she's in my program. She's just rocketed up the skill level. Peter Zinko just joined the other day. I've seen him consistently in Daily Dial. Like that's what you take. There was a couple other people who were a little before early on, but guys, again, like be the best damn student you can. Like absorb all that knowledge. Like take no prisoners. So anyway, glad to see you. Glad to see you both. Yeah, Lindsay's getting comfortable being uncomfortable. Like that is. Dude, we're done here. We're done. Get comfortable being uncomfortable. Okay, see you guys. It was cool being on the pod, but that is the message.
Freaking love it.
Yeah. Okay, so Andy comes back. And I think he's like 10 times more amped up before. Like I think what happened, Andy actually says this before he goes out into any one of his seminars or talks, he'll go into the gym and just lift weights. And so he, got his pump on, get lifted. So I'm pretty sure he went and did that again during lunch.
It's the best thing to do. Like real talk, it's called priming yourself. Prime yourself before activities. You don't think it's weird when a NBA player or a NFL player warms up before a game. Why do you think it's strange to warm up before life, to warm up before your calls, to warm up before doing something that you think is important? Before we do podcast, by the way, me and Jeff are going to be doing a podcast. He's being told right now that he's going to come on the Into the Mind podcast again for the second time, but this time in person. And what we do that's different than the first time we did is now that it's in person, we actually prime before the episode by doing a workout and a cold plunge. And then we come on here. This way we can get the energy hyped.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important. Hype. Bring the energy, bring the excitement, do your preparation, but keep going. Sorry, I get excited. Like I'm going to stop distracting you.
Okay.
I say that.
No, this is good. This exchange. Okay. So Andy comes back, and again, he's throwing back 12 Red Bulls. He's ready to rock and roll. So the next topic that he talks about is what's termed the success trap. The success trap is really when you're the jack of all trades and you're the master of none. If you kind of know a little bit, if you're kind of good at everything, then you're not great at anything, and it kills your ability to make money. So when Andy talks about it, he's like, I'm going to be super great at sales, and that is the one thing I'm going to do. And so for some of us, we're trying to be good. We're trying to be good at foreclosures and probates and creative and X and Y, and like the list just goes on and on and on. Right. Carolyn talks all the time. Like it's shiny object syndrome, guys.
Amen.
Right. It's like, I'm going to be good at development. And I'm going to be doing this. I'm going to do this multifamily and industrial, all this crap. It can even be something a little more subtle of like multiple markets. Right. So like, and honestly, we've just concentrated on Houston, for example. But if I have my concentration spread out over 50 different markets or even over 2 or 3, I'm good in multiple areas, but I'm not great in one. And I realized that even in Houston, like once I just got locked in on one city, then I could be great at the rehab and the underwriting and the resources and all the rest of it because I didn't have to split my attention to all these different places to make it work. Or at minimum, if you are going to add a market, be great at one first before you level up to the next one. If you even have to at all. You can make $1 million a year in one major metro and you're good here. Like, Houston's like, it's the 4th largest city. You're probably going to be the 3rd. You really can't outgrow the 4th largest city in the country, So,
but there's so much truth to that because we were in Kansas City a few weeks back and we were hanging out with our buddy Michael Frankie. And Michael Frankie simply focuses on a single strategy, pre-foreclosure, particular marketing, door knocking, in a particular county in the Kansas City area. He does about $3 million a year in wholesale assignment, just doing that one thing in that one place. And he's been consistently doing that for the last decade, right? Like the power of focus is, I cannot emphasize it enough. Focus, it's an acronym. What does it stand for? Those of you who've been on a chat with me, who's been on a Zoom with me, who's been on a coaching call with me, do me a favor, drop in the comments right now, what is focus an acronym for? What does focus stand for? It stands for something very important. It's FOCUS. What does focus stand for? Put it in the comments below. We'll come back to it in a moment.
I would even say like the whole thing, like you guys are hearing like these big numbers, like $3 million just wholesaling in one market. That's like, guys, that should be kind of liberating. You mean I don't have to attack 10 different markets to get consistent deals? I can be in one and I can just focus in one place. Like when that finally dawned on me that in order to become a millionaire, I didn't have to go to 15 different markets. I was like, oh, thank God. Like that'd just be brutal to have to do that if that was required.
I love it. By the way, Peter said it. Focus stands for follow one course until successful.
Reach. That's it. Okay. So that was a success trap we just talked about, and that was another one of Andy's big pushes, like be laser focused, as we talked about at the beginning. So he circles back again and he talks about that, Andy, I think he's 45.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And, if you see him, like this dude is built. Okay. And which is hard to do as you get older. Now, and he was talking about, I was like, I really didn't take care of my health until then, but I made this big decision. Like this was the course correction of the lifetime. And, off he went. And so he goes back to this with the idea of, if I really wanted it, I would have it. If you really want that 6-pack, you would have it. Okay. And some of us are just like, damn, that's a little harsh. But it goes back to the thing. Are you viciously attacking your goals? Are you doing everything it takes to achieve it? And Andy kind of looked at it, and I swear he was like looking me dead in the eye. He's like, you are standing in your own way. It's you. It's no one else. You are ultimately the one who is stopping you from achieving your dreams and goals. It's like, yup.
Yep.
And a lot of people hear that and they go, damn, I see why people don't like Andy. He's just like, you screwed up. And if that's the way you take it, then yes, of course you're not. But let's just take a step back for a second. If you are the obstacle, though, like just walk with me here. If you yourself are the obstacle, if you are the one hindering yourself, and don't be judgmental about it. Don't be like, oh, I'm such a piece of crap. But if you are the obstacle, that means you have the capability to change it. You have the ability to make the adjustment. You have the ability to step aside. You have the ability to reinvent yourself. You have the ability to level up. That doesn't mean it's like super duper easy.
Yep.
But if it's not another person, if it's not the corporate overlords, whatever you think the other is, then that means you can get the dreams and the goals that you want. You're the only one who's stopping you. It's not Dairy Queen's fault that I love their chocolate blizzards. It's my fault that I go there when I know I shouldn't.
I love this.
Okay. It's not the realtor's fault that my offer was rejected. It's that either my numbers weren't good and I can do a better one, or my volume is simply too low and I'm not cranking out enough offers. Okay, the realtor, who gives a crap? There's 15 other people that I'm going to go work with this afternoon. I can still get what I want. And why didn't I? Why didn't I work harder and go after the other 14 opportunities that were there? Because I wanted to go watch TV. Because I wanted to doom scroll on my Instagram or TikTok or whatever the hell it is that day. And we're all guilty of this. Keep circling back to the idea of, if you want this goal, if you actually want it, not just if you actually want it. Fight for it mercilessly. Nothing will stop you. And if that's, again, pointing that aggression weapon in the right direction, it's not about hurting other people. That's not where this aggression is going. It's that I am going to attack and go after this goal and do everything in my power. And my complacency won't stop me. My temptation, whatever the things are, none of this will stop me. And I will fight for it. And I won't settle for, well, I guess that's just the way it is.
Powerful.
And and guys, like it's not like I've absorbed all of this. Like I'm gonna have to remind myself probably 15 times every day until this becomes my identity. And even then I gotta remind myself.
Well,
more.
you know what's interesting, and I was saying this to you, and you and I agree on this, that when we're teaching this, by the way, like this is one of my favorite things about having a podcast and having a platform and creating content is, yes, I'm sharing this and you're sharing this and we are sharing this with you as an audience. And at the same time, we are sharing this with ourselves. We are reminding, like Jeff is teaching you and he's teaching himself at the exact same time. When I coach other people, I feel honored and blessed because I'm coaching myself in those very moments at the exact same time. It's impossible to give it and not also receive it at the same time. So as you're learning this, by the way, this is why earlier today I said share this with a friend. What do you think happens? You guys, like, yes, guys, here's what happens when you share it with a friend. When you share this exact YouTube link, my YouTube channel grows. I get more viewer count. I get more subscribers. I get all that good stuff. But here's what happens for you. You get more people inside of your inner circle who are aware of the same things you're aware of. You start to get more powerful conversations. You start to get people that you can have this kind of dialogue with. You start leveling up your group. You start leveling up the people in your community. You start leveling up your life because a rising tide lifts all ships. This is why I tell you to share things. So recognize this. This is so important. So let's keep going here. And by the way, guys, we are going to be doing, I'm just telling you right now, I plan on doing a part 2 with Jeff because enough of you asked for it. And so at the same time, before we keep going, because some people are going to have to jump off early. I already know how this goes because it's late on the East Coast for some people. Jeff, for people who aren't following you, where can they get a hold of you on social media? Like, what's the best way people can get a hold of you and connect with you?
Best way, guys, to find me is go on Instagram. It's jeffsmith.rei. jeffsmith.rei. If you're struggling on your sales calls and you know this is a problem, don't screw around with it. Fight viciously. Reach out to me. Send me a voice memo. Send me a message, and I'll get you connected into my school program. My students are getting deals now. Like, let's solve this thing. And, again, I'm kind of taking I'm not going to apologize for having a course that I poured my heart and soul into, and I see my students having success with it. And if that is what you're dealing with, then I invite you to be a part of it. And I would love to have you and love to talk with you through it. jeffsmith.rei. Reach out to me on Instagram.
And by the way, I'm in his school community and it's kick-ass. Like, it genuinely is kick-ass. So guys, connect with Jeff if you haven't already. And if you need to talk to people, talk to Lindsay in the chat. Lindsay is inside the community. Talk to her and be like, hey, what's it like for you inside there? What sort of products is Lindsay is killing it? And notice I say Lindsay's name so much recently because she shows up like nobody's freaking business. She crushes. I got to hang out with her in Chicago. I feel absolutely blessed.
Cool.
And dude, Lindsay is so dope. So cool. Also, Lindsay, I got a dog. I got to show you the dog later. Like, this dog has high energy. Lindsay's got some high energy dogs. So I was like, damn, this is what Lindsay meant when she said she had high energy dogs. But let's keep going. What we'll do, guys, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to have Jeff cover one more thing because then we need to go get dinner. And speaking of dogs, I'm a dog dad now. And I heard the dog barking downstairs. I'm like, ooh, I got to take this dog for a walk because he is still a 6-month-old puppy. And I do not want the 6-month puppy peeing in the house. Although he's decently potty trained.
The dog's name is Dune. Dune is a cool dog.
Dune's awesome, right?
Oh my gosh.
Freaking love this dog.
I've said it to you a few times. Like, Dune is lucky to have you.
Dude,
and you're lucky to have this is a both way. Like, both of the dog and Marlon are lucky to have each other. Like, he's just the coolest dog.
I'm extremely fortunate. So let's get into one more lesson, and then we're going to be doing a part 2. And guys, by the way, Jeff did all of this. He actually covered all of the notes and then some inside of his community. This is what he did yesterday. So if you're like, man, I don't want to wait for part 2, go inside his school and go get the recording inside there. He actually went through everything and even more in depth. So go there, check it out.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the last thing I want to leave with. Now, so we're starting to wrap up this day.
Yep.
Everybody's all hyped up. Like you can imagine, like it's a group of a hundred people in there who like consume Andy's energy. Okay, so they're like, oh man, we're gonna conquer the world, like all the stuff, right? Like the energy is just out the roof. I'm like, damn, okay. So get to the end, and Andy says, look, all of you guys are now here saying, I'm gonna go change, conquer the world. I'm gonna all the things, okay? And a lot of you guys have teams. Now, if you go back home and you kick in the door and say, listen, we're going to change things around here, you're going to get a bad reaction. Why? Because you've been training your team for months, if not years, on some of these bad habits and attitudes.
Yep.
Right. And so if you come in, or even some of them, like you're going back to your wife, you're going back to your husband, going back to your kids, and they're going to be like, all right, guys, we're going to change some things around here. Like this is not going to go over well. And so instead, Andy says, here's how you're going to be the leader here. Because if you can't lead yourself, you don't deserve to be a leader, and you have to prove it every day. So here's what he was telling everybody. So you go back because you're going to get everyone's buy-in. The funny thing, Andy, when he hires people, he won't interview them unless their spouse is there. Because he knows when that person goes home, they're going to need the support. Right? So when he interviews the person, he's like, your spouse has to be there. He won't travel without Jackie and his kids at all.
Wow.
Because Jackie's she's super duper
She's
smart.
badass.
Yeah, like holy crap. So when he talks to them on interviews, he'll say, I'm going to peer pressure this person to be the best husband, best wife they possibly can. So when they go home to you, they're a better person. Will you positively peer pressure them with me when things start to get tough? So he gets the buy-in of the family to support them from not only the work, but the family side. Andy doesn't believe in a work-life balance. He believes they're totally integrated. Who you're impacting at work is going to have an impact at home. And you better, as a leader, say, I'm sending you back to your family better than before. And that the family also says, yeah, Andy's like the best thing that ever happened to you. Any job offers you get, hell no, we were not taking them, because they're so bought into it. So going back to your team, he starts off with, here's how he begins. Hey, everybody, I just got back from this seminar. Really great experience. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about what I need to do better and how I need to change. And I first want to start off and say, I'm sorry. I have not been the leader that you all deserve. I have not been the leader that has been driving us correctly in the right direction, and I'm sorry. And we're going to do some things differently going forward, and it's going to start with me leading by example. You guys are going to see what it is. And as I'm doing these things, I'm going to ask you guys for your support to help us become this better group. And I'm going to show you what that is first. Are you guys in? So he gets their buy-in, but first by starting and saying, I haven't been the leader. Because that's the truth. You haven't been. You haven't been the leader. It's not even making it up. It's just the truth. Say, hey, I'm sorry. I haven't had the best attitude. I haven't been as committed as I'm supposed to be. I haven't been whatever. And you just put it out there. It was one of the first things Andy did when he first came out. I was like, I just admit everything. Even when people talk stuff that's not even entirely true, it was like, oh yeah, 10 times worse than that. Because then you take all the bullets out of the gun.
Yep.
And so you come in and say, I'm sorry I wasn't the leader I should have been for you guys, and I'm going to be better. And I'd like your commitment that you're going to support me as I become that. And it's going to come with some of these things that we're going to start instituting and doing better. Are you guys in? And so now you have the commitment of your team. And it's not like they're going to flip the switch the next day and everything's going to be perfect. You're going to have to, again, reinforce that you deserve to be the leader by proving it every day. And as you demonstrate that example, they buy into it. The culture of the group starts to change. And when you've created a culture, then the people who buy into the culture, they will fight for you. They won't leave. And the people who don't buy into the culture disappear on their own. That's why, like, if some of you guys are in sub 2, the culture of what Pace created keeps people out who don't want to be a part of it. The same thing with Andy, like high energy, take no prisoners. Like, we're going to be the very best we can. It draws in the people who want that culture, and it keeps those out who really can't handle it or just don't want it.
It's called standards. It's setting standards. It's being polarized. It's okay to not be loved by everybody. It's okay to not be liked by everybody.
It's inevitable.
If you're doing it properly, it's inevitable. And so that's a powerful lesson. And that's so freaking true. And I love that approach. I mean, you got me sitting here thinking about how I'm gonna go back and this is what's nice. Like we are like I'm learning right now. Like I'm sitting and thinking, you know what? I need to go back into my community and actually I need to have a conversation with them and say the same thing. Hey guys, you know what? I screwed up. Yesterday night I talked to Jeff and I haven't been showing up the way. I'm being so serious. Like I'm this is going to be a conversation I have with my community tomorrow. Right? Hey guys, I haven't been showing up the way I need to be showing up for you. And I've let you down. And going forward, I'm going to be implementing and being the better version of myself, the best version of myself. So, Jeff, first off, thank you for being here tonight.
Dude, it was an honor and a privilege. I'm so excited to be here.
Dude, and like this has been fun. I mean, people are loving the chat. Looks like Abraham's probably going to reach out to you because Abraham needs to jump inside there into your school community. So again, for the people who maybe just joined, where can they get connected with you? How do they find you? What's the best way?
Best way to reach out to me, guys, go onto Instagram and look up jeffsmith.rei. jeffsmith.rei. Go there. There's some free training you can log into if you're not totally bought in. Check out. That's called Elite Calls School. You get some great content there. You get a preview of Closer School, which is where that's where you learn to close and get people to sign the dotted line. There's some other clips and sales tips there. And then if you're at that point, send me a voice memo. Say, Jeff, I am struggling here. It needs to be fixed. Send me a text message. Say, this is what I'm dealing with. Can you help me? And then, of course, some of my students are in the chat here. Ask them their honest opinion because they'll tell you if they think it's crap, then the students will actually tell you, like, no, it's the worst money I ever spent, or they'll say, damn, that was the best money. Ask them.
Guys, and I'm telling you right now, go inside there. If you are in a position where you do sales for a living, where you make your money based on you being able to convert prospects and leads into contracts and dollars, you need to go and get professional sales training. And I'm telling you right now, I do not have an affiliate with Jeff. In fact, I probably need to get one because I push a lot of people his way. And it's just because it's the best thing for them. What's nice for me is I like to know that people are living and practicing what they preach, that they are obsessed about what they're doing, that they're constantly figuring out how to iterate and get better. And Jeff is one of those people. And so if you've been looking for that person and you're feeling connected to Jeff right now, and you're feeling like, man, the way he articulates, the way he communicates, that's for you. Do not waste any more time, because if you're in a world where a victory for you, a closed deal for you is equal to thousands of dollars, whatever, he doesn't charge enough personally. In fact, while he's here, I'm going to be trying to convince him to raise his prices because he delivers so much value. So get in before I convince him, and I will convince him to raise his prices because there's just logic for having higher prices. Get in while he's charging whatever he charges because he gives so much value. Now, if you are new to this YouTube channel, because we had a lot of people on here that were here for the first time, make sure that you pay your dues. I don't charge with a credit card for this channel. We give out this content for free. Sam and I and Alejandro, we've been doing this podcast for 99 straight episodes. Next week is going to be episode 100, which means 100 weeks of not missing a single episode. The way you show that you've been getting value is by smashing the like button, hitting the subscribe button, and then going one step further. When you click the subscribe button on the channel right now, there's a little bell notification. There's a little drop-down menu next to the subscribe button. Hit that and click all notifications so you know the next time we are live. The power of being here live is you get to ask your questions. You get to communicate. You get to talk to each other. Like, I love seeing Lindsay and Peter in the comments having a conversation with one another. That's where the community is built. So we will be back here again next Tuesday for another episode of the Think Big podcast. Unlike normal episodes where I could click sign off from here, I'm going to have to go over to my computer and sign off. So, Jeff, you got 10 more seconds to say whatever you want to say to the audience.
Okay. Guys, thanks for being here. Love to talk to you. Why am I so obsessed about this? Because there was a $200,000 deal that changed my life, and I almost lost it because I didn't understand sales, and I don't want that for you. So